Welcome back to another Problem with Video, and today I'm going to be talking about relationships in comics. And I'm going to be using Spider-Man and Mary Jane as a primary example. Now before we get into this, let me tell you about today's sponsor! Gamer Subs. Every Friday they're dropping a mystery waifu cup, and you can use the code COMICS at checkout to get these. If you download their app, you'll get a 20-minute notice. Even I'm racing to get these cups. They're super collectible, and if you're that kind of person who likes to collect things, also super resellable. But they also sell a great energy drink. It's a powder-based energy drink. It's less chalky than its competitors, and I truly do enjoy it. All right, so let's get into relationships in comics. Now, my general opinion, and I've said this multiple times across various podcasts, is that relationships in comics don't work. But I don't mean they can't work. I mean they don't work. There are examples of relationships that have properly been fleshed out in the comic books and they've worked very well. Superman and Lois is probably one of the most famous relationships, to the point where when Brian Michael Bendis tried to end it back in like 2018, 2019, everyone freaked out on him. Mark and Eve from Invincible. That's a long-standing relationship. It's done very well. We all love it. You can also look at other situations like Reed Richards and Sue Storm. That's a situation where they always need to be a family, okay? Black Bolt and Medusa is another great one, but I've only given you 4 examples, and there's probably maybe double that, of truly successful superhero comic books giving you a relationship. Now, there's multiple reasons, in my opinion, why relationships don't work in comics, and I've got them all listed out in front of me so that I can have a reference point. That's how these videos work. But the first one is the most obvious. The status quo. So a lot of you who are new to comics hear the term status quo thrown out a whole bunch. What does it actually mean? Well, the idea behind the status quo is that at all times, we need to be able to revert our superhero back to what is dubbed the status quo. In the case of Batman, he has to be able to go back to being billionaire Bruce Wayne, who has a lot of toys, no Robin, and he has to be able to do detective work. That has to be available to him at all times. Spider-Man has to go back to being the poor superhero who has no money to his name, trying to sell photos of himself, and he's chasing after the girl that he can never achieve. This happens for a couple of reasons. With Spider-Man's situation, they want you to be able to relate to Spider-Man. When he was first written, he was a 16-year-old kid trying to get the girl. Now that he's aged up a little bit, he's either in college or not in college. They don't really know. It depends what storyline's being written, but we still stick to the idea that he can't get the girl. That's a part of his character trait. That's a part of what they want to do to him. Batman's the same deal. We almost had Batman get married to Catwoman, only to have that ripped away at the last second and it be shoved off into an alternate reality. Now you're probably sitting there going, well, the status quo is just what we dub it, Benny. That doesn't matter. The status quo can be whatever we want it to be. We can put him into a relationship with Mary Jane and that can become the status quo. I agree, but Marvel doesn't. So from the Sony leaks, all the way back in 2011, 2011 is when the contract was signed. Either way, the Sony leaks that happened in the last couple of years. We actually see the character traits that Marvel has decided Peter Parker can never stray from. The status quo is a in-contract binding clause that if you're going to work with Spider-Man, cannot change. Spider-Man at all times has to be male. He cannot torture, cannot kill, cannot use foul language, cannot smoke tobacco. He's not allowed to sell or distribute illegal drugs. He can't abuse alcohol, and he does not have sex before the age of 16 and does not have sex with anyone under the age of 16. He's also not allowed to be a homosexual unless Marvel has portrayed an alter ego that is homosexual. Peter Parker himself, he has his own character traits separate from Spider-Man. His full name will be Peter Benjamin Parker. He is Caucasian and heterosexual. His parents will be absent from his life during childhood. From the time his parents become absent, he will be raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben in New York City. He gains his powers while attending middle school or college. He gains his powers from being bitten by a spider. He designs his first red and blue costume. The black costume is a symbiote and not designed by him. He's raised in a middle-class household in Queens, New York, and he attends or attended high school in Queens, New York, and he attends or attended college in New York City, New York. Now, a lot of this is like, what? Yeah, it's all set in stone. That's why Peter Benjamin Parker has been the exact Spider-Man that you have known since you were a kid. Now, in there, it does not say that Peter cannot be in a relationship, but using this that there's an editorial mandate that he cannot change from these guidelines, you can assume a few other things need to be tied into that. He's always an enemy of Venom. Him and Venom can't actually be super best friends. He always has to be going after Mary Jane. That's another thing that seemingly has to happen. Thanks to One More Day, we know for a fact they did not want the marriage to continue. So that's the number one reason why I don't think relationships work in comics. And I'm going to go into like a breakdown as to why in general they don't work beyond that, okay? So status quo is your number one problem because we always got to get back and get out of the relationship. So what's the easiest way to get out of a relationship? Don't get into a relationship. This is my advice to you, the young audience who watches these videos. If you think there's a lot of drama in relationships, you're right. Just don't get in any. Problem solved. The advice of Benny or Comicstorian or the team members of Comicstorian do not reflect the opinions or they do, it's me, but whatever. So, okay, you're like, Benny, you're talking about status quo. I get that, but that doesn't mean that I don't want a relationship in comics. And I agree with you, but my opinion still stands. And there's a couple more other problems with this. Next up is what I call the family aspect problem. So, okay, so let's go back to our example, Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Whenever he's with Mary Jane now needs to be involved. So that means that Mary Jane needs to get weird powers where she can transform into different things using a Dial H for Hero watch or a Ben 10 watch, whatever you really want to look at it. It also means that Mary Jane needs to have an interesting life going on so we can have B plots. It means that Mary Jane needs to have friends and she needs to have a job and there needs to be a creepy boss trying to encroach on her to go into her brain, and she's working with Mysterio so that she can mess with Peter Parker that technically try to save him from his friend, not friend, revived from the dead, turned into Kindred, Norman Osborn. And what I just said is a plot point that they actually did. The point I'm making is that she needs to be included in some way. Now you would think, no, she doesn't. She just has to be there. Our boy Peter has to go home and just be happy with his supermodel, amazing girlfriend who's famous around the world and makes a boatload of money. But that goes against the other thing. Peter Parker's supposed to be the poor guy that we can all relate to, getting photos, filming Spider-Man, that kind of a thing. Also, then we run into another problem. Now, this isn't a new issue. This isn't a new problem at all. This has been going on for as long as media has existed. If you have a support character in a comic book or a movie or a TV show, and they are not involved and they're just there, then it's considered I don't know the appropriate term, but basically a trophy. Okay? So Spider-Man's wife is a trophy wife. She doesn't involve herself in anything. She's cool with everything. She's the perfect wife, which is the only way you could do the relationship and not incorporate her into things. You would have to make her have no issues with him being Spider-Man. She's never in danger, and she never involves herself. So she's literally just the beautiful woman he goes home to that causes no issues. From a storytelling standpoint, cool. We've found a location for Mary Jane. But then you start to get the counterpoint to the argument. People being like, well, I want to see Peter Parker and Mary Jane go on a date. I want to see Mary Jane be more involved. We had a period when girlfriends and wives were nothing more than plot devices. You may have heard of the term sticker in the fridge. This is related to Kyle Rayner back in, I don't know the time frame, probably early 2000s, because that's when Kyle Rayner was very prominent in the comic books. Basically, he had a girlfriend who was literally exactly what I described. Kyle Rayner would go home, and there she was, his beautiful girlfriend after saving the day. Happy-go-lucky Kyle Rayner. And what the writers chose to do was chop up that girlfriend and stick her in the fridge. This was used as a plot point to make Kyle Rayner want revenge against the villain that killed her. But ever since then, there's been an active movement to create backgrounds and support stuff for the characters around our superheroes. If Mary Jane just existed, and she just existed there, and she did nothing useful and was involved in no plot points, and her only purpose was to be the damsel in distress, that would not be a good portrayal of women in comic books. It's also not a good portrayal of relationships. You shouldn't look at a relationship as, I get to go home to the... This isn't the 1950s. This isn't Mad Men. I hope my wife made me a roast tonight, and then we're gonna go get her knickers off. Like, this doesn't exist. That's not what we're doing here. And that's what it becomes in the comics. So, if we're going to have a relationship, the relationship needs to be incorporated into the superhero. Now, this then relates to other problems. Let's say I'm a writer and I've fixed Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Mary Jane's here. She has powers. She's on the team. I want her to work with Spider-Man, but she's going to have her own adventures over here with Black Cat. That's actually what's happening right now with Mary Jane. When a new writer comes on, what is he supposed to do with that? Does he now write stories that involve a superpowered Mary Jane and how she works with Spider-Man? Or does he just break them up? So now we need to throw in weird artificial drama, which the amount of times I can't even count is when the relationship goes south because the significant other is tired of the superhero life. I'm tired of you constantly being in danger. I know what I signed up for 40 years ago, but now I'm tired of it because we need to end this kind of a situation. Or, another example, I actually dislike the John Kent, Jay Nakamura relationship. And it's because it's going in the exact direction that I predicted it was probably going to go in. Now, I don't read John Kent storylines consistently. I read John Kent when he shows up in other comics. When John Kent shows up in other comics, Jay's there. What's Jay there for? To tell you that John Kent is in a relationship. That is it. Jay has yet to do anything else as far as I've seen. He's just there for John to go home to. I know he's supposed to be an eco-terrorist and maybe he's got powers and does stuff in John Kent's book, but everywhere else that John Kent shows up, Jay's there. It's almost like they're trying to make Jay into a Lois Lane type character, but without all the background that makes Lois Lane work. Lois Lane works because she literally has had comics for years. We've established a reporter, backgrounds, histories, relationships. She is a fully fleshed out character. And that's why Superman and Lois works. Because Lois is a fully fleshed out character that everyone agrees on how it should be. So when you get Superman and Lois, they both have their own things going on. And what makes Superman even more interesting, just kind of segue into this portion here, is because when we gave Superman John Kent, it added a dynamic to his character that actually enhanced the stories of Superman. Because Superman's biggest problem is normally that he's too powerful. He can literally do anything, and when they need him to do something else, he just learns a new ability. He's the Goku of comics. Why do you think people go Goku versus Superman? It's because Superman he literally learned how to explode at one point in the last 10 years. That's not even like a 60s thing. He can just explode on a whim. So that's the point I'm making. So you needed to give him another dynamic. One of the things that always made Superman interesting was his link to humanity, which was Lois. Oh, I gotta save Lois. I gotta take care of Lois. But in order for Lois to not turn into what I just said, the damsel in distress, the woman in the fridge, they had to make Lois a character so that there was a reason for her to get captured. Well, she's an investigative news reporter. She's going to get herself in these situations, and she's gonna take this information and go send it out and fix the world. Technically. And that's kind of what they're doing with her. And they've always done with her, which is Superman's connection to humanity. And now by giving him a child, Superman's one of the few situations where giving him a family full on worked. Because now Superman has another connection. He has another thing to worry about. His weakness is kryptonite and family, apparently, because that's what causes him to freak out. Oh, magic's in there too, but I think family's one of his worst weaknesses. Bringing this back to Mary Jane, we've never truly settled on what Mary Jane is supposed to be to Spider-Man. She kind of adapts and free floats to whatever the current writer wants to do with her, if they even want to incorporate her. She's never solidified in as the top shot reporter who's doing her own storyline. What friends does Mary Jane have that is a supporting cast of Spider-Man? You know, you could argue that Perry is a friend of Superman's, but you could also argue that Perry White and Jimmy Olsen are support characters to Lois. We don't have that with Mary Jane and Spider-Man. Like right now, Mary Jane's teaming up with Black Cat. Would you say that Black Cat is more of a Mary Jane support character or Black Cat's more of a Spider-Man support character? And that's the constant issue we end up having. And I know I sound like I'm rambling, but I'm getting to a point with all of this. Adding relationships to comics adds another thread to the narrative that needs to be incorporated. And when you're on a rotating staff of writers, you don't have one guy writing from dawn to dusk every day, that becomes a greater problem. Especially when there's mandates in here, such as Spider-Man has to design his own costume. He has to go to college. He has to go to middle school. He has to be in Queens. You need all of this. So what's the easiest thing to do for writers if we're going to constantly rotate writers? Well, you just make a very much blank slate. Basic Spider-Man. He's chasing the girl, not with the girl. He has no money. There's Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Cool. Go make a cartoon. Go make a movie. Go make 20 different comic books. If you fully incorporate Spider-Man and Mary Jane's relationship into the comics, all these spin-off comics now need to answer, where is Mary Jane? Superman has to answer that all the time, but it's incorporated a lot of times into his story. Like when he was at War World and he just wanted to get home to his wife. We did it. Cool. We mentioned her. And what was Lois doing during all of this? Hey, here's a supporting plot with Lois Lane because she's an important character. And that's why, overall, I don't feel relationships work in comics. But there's one last thing that I actually don't want relationships in comic for this reason. Then it's not a superhero comic. So yes, we can have situations with Superman and Lois and John. Those work, okay? But more often than not, when they incorporate a relationship, they're trying to change the story. No longer is it going to be Red Hood chasing around bad guys, shooting up the villains. At this point, what Red Hood is doing is now dating whatever girl we have him with, which means now we need to go more slice of life. We need to figure out how it's going to incorporate into a storyline. Our story goes from a superhero action comic to a superhero romantic comic. I love Batman and Superman Double Date by Tom King, but you can't tell me that those two issues are a superhero story. That's a slice of life, fun adventure, which can work. Look at Invincible. Invincible is pretty much what if you were a superhero in more of a slice of life thing. By the way, we also get to punch aliens. But when you're doing more traditional superhero comic books from DC and Marvel, where we have issues such as a status quo and issues like women in the fridge and issues like it has to match up with the movie, I'm reading that for a fun superhero romp where there's mystery, intrigue, and action. I'm personally not reading that to see who is Batman going to date next, who is Superman going to date next, what is John Kent's relationship status. And I know a lot of people aren't. If you're looking for a slice of life book, plenty of those exist. It exists in manga too, and they just do different genres for it. My Hero Academia has teased at a potential relationship and never gotten around to it. I remember starting My Hero Academia and it was Deku and Ichigo, and I was like, oh, they're gonna get together and we're gonna have that dynamic. No, that never happened. The closest I think we ever got to a legit relationship was Toga, because she loves everyone to the point where she wants to kill them. Anyway, the point I'm making is, if you're reading a superhero comic, you're reading a superhero story, and you want to hear about their lives, and the best way to hear about their life would be Spider-Man goes home to Mary Jane, but then you have the counterpoint where Mary Jane can't just be a damsel in distress. So now we have to incorporate her into the story, which now changes it into, we give her powers, we go slice of life, it changes the narrative in the story. If you just want to do an action movie / comic book, you just don't give them a relationship. Or you shelf the relationship at the beginning. How many movies have you seen where I'm in this great and stable relationship and now they're gone until the ending? Like, that's it. They just remove them from the story so our spy / superhero can go do their thing. Now, I know not everyone agrees with me on this, and I know some people just want the relationship. And from what I've seen, basically, because I went on Twitter and I asked about it, generally people agree relationships don't work. I ask these questions on Twitter once in a while. Go follow us over at Comicstorian, and you can see these questions. And generally people have agreed relationships don't work. But there is the counterpoint. There is other people who say they can work, and they want to see their superheroes happy. But once again, then you end the story. And we can't do that. We're not allowed to end Spider-Man's story. We're not allowed to end Batman's story. We have to go back to the status quo. The status quo is no relationship works. But anyway, at this point, I am going to ramble and I am going to loop because I feel like I've given you my point. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. Do you think relationships can totally work and I'm in the wrong? What other examples do you think of it actually working exist? Because like I said, I think Mark and Eve from Invincible, Superman and Lois, Reed Richards, Black Bolt, Medusa, all of those work great. Nightwing and Batgirl's a newer one that just started, and I think that this one could be very interesting, but I expect it to fall apart. But it's interesting because it's two superheroes trying to live their life. And I know. There's the Nightwing Starfire stance. I'm in the Batgirl camp, all right? If I got to pick one girl for Nightwing to be with, make it Batgirl. That's what I say. Fight me. I don't care. Anyway, Dan's laughing because he knows that just ignited so many comments down below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do enjoy making these videos and just spouting my opinion on what's going on in the world of comics. Please do not get me wrong. I love comic books. I love manga. I read these things every day, all day. It's that and video games. This is what I do in my off time. So trust me, I love them. I always like spouting my opinions, and I've always asked, how do you feel about relationships in comics? What do you feel about this one being broken up? What do you feel about that? And this is my stance. I don't like any of them. I don't think any of them should work because anyway, we're not going to do the whole video a second time. Dan and I just recently discovered that apparently every time I make a video, only about 200,000 out of the 2.9 million actually get notified that the video exists. So Dan can put this up on the screen right now. There's my proof. If you want to know all the videos coming out and you want to know which comics we're covering, we do a lot of DC, we do a lot of Marvel, and sometimes some indie stuff. Right now we're working on Iron Man. Dan's going to be voicing over that one. We're working on some Batman stuff, because we always are. We're working on some Turtles, The Last Ronin / The Lost Years. It's a long title. More Dark Knights of Steel. And if you want to know when those videos come out, turn on your notifications. I would really greatly appreciate that. And it would help revitalize our channel, and you would do more for me than you could ever imagine. Plus, liking and leaving any comment down below super helps. So we're trying to fix this channel. It's my fault that it's in the state it is. Don't quit your job for 2 years, guys. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time right here. And if you want to know more about that, let me know. I'm debating making a video explaining everything that I did wrong for 2 years.